You're watching the OBR streaming network. This is an all new edition of The React. Today is June 11th, day one. Mandatory minicamp out in Berea. My name is Brad Ward. The man next to me is the always fantastic Pete Smith. You can follow him on Twitter or X at _Pete Smith _. What is happening, Pete?
Busy week.
Yeah, lots going on. Lots to talk about tonight with the mandatory minicamp news today. We'll get into it all. Let's before we dive into our first video, let's kind of start with just a couple things from camp today. So Jerry Jeudy not out at camp, but supposedly he's there, right? Are you concerned at all about injury? I guess that he's dealing with some sort of an injury.
Well, without knowing anything about it, I mean, look, obviously you don't want anybody hurt. You want guys to be able out there practice. Obviously, there's a little bit of extra sort of anticipation. People want to see Jerry Jeudy. But overall, no, it doesn't sound like the Browns are all that worried about it. And as much as you want to sort of get these guys going in minicamp, especially Jerry Jeudy, because he's new, because you're not going to see him potentially for 6 weeks, you sort of want to get to see him do stuff. But like the Browns are in a weird spot with guys coming back from rehab, notably Deshaun Watson and some other things where it's like, yeah, cool, he can throw the ball to some of these guys. And we saw some progress on that front today. But like, let's wait till the pads come on till we are really worried about it. 6 weeks. I don't imagine there's a reason that he wouldn't be healthy by then. So we'll see what happens there.
That's kind of what I thought. Paul Spencer subscribed 35 straight months in a row over on Twitch. We appreciate you for that. Everybody in the chat, thanks for participating in the show. So we've got the main headline of the day to talk about here first, and we're going to go to the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show as they talk about Amari Cooper's absence at day one of mandatory minicamp. So let's dive into this here, and we'll discuss as we go along and guide you through it all.
Keyword. Mandatory. You get voluntary. Fined. You get fined if you skip, and Amari Cooper is not present for the Cleveland Browns.
Are you surprised? I'm not.
I'm not shocked one bit either.
All right, let me stop it already. Oh, are the fines? I believe the fines are mandatory now, right?
They are, but like when the Browns agree to the contract, they could agree to either waive them or refund them. It's like
okay.
There's easily ways around it, so it's.
Okay.
I don't know if they are mandatory or not. That part, the team might just be like, we don't care. Or they may have come to some understanding. But ultimately, that part's not a big deal.
Yeah, it's not a big deal. I think I remember reading it in the most recent deal that those fines are mandatory, but you can take care of them on the back end when you actually come to an agreement, I believe. So, but that's interesting. All right, here we go.
We said he in the last year of his contract, they ain't said nothing to the guy. And they went and got the dude to try to replace the guy.
Oh, no, the Browns have now become a poverty franchise.
No, that's not a poverty franchise.
I'll come out there and fight you right now.
It's a joke. I'm making fun of Mike.
Mike's on tilt today.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's like, listen, first of all, like, y'all literally doing this right in front of his face like that. Like, y'all ain't. Like, he ain't been that guy for the past few years around here. And you go get his replacement.
You done moved in your girlfriend before you divorced your wife.
Moved in the guy, paid the guy right in front of me. like I ain't a priority. Like, I ain't been doing my thing. Y'all ain't came to me and asked me about cat, dog, nothing.
Yeah.
And now, I'm not showing up to no mandatory mandatory until y'all talk some chickens.
You know, sometimes we talk about the Browns and we repeat the same conversation essentially like 32 times. We just look at it at different angles. This is a topic, Mike.
I don't think we talked about it.
We have missed this topic, and I didn't even think about it until you said that he was.
But we talked about when they signed Judy.
Yeah,
We've talked about
I
this
said
many
it.
times.
I wasn't here that day.
I said it
We
the day
have
they
that.
signed
It's
Judy.
kind of a slap in the face that they
100%.
not that they traded for Judy, but that they extended Judy,
Right in front, and then
who's done nothing in the NFL.
and came to him and said nothing about next year. It's like I told you, I set it up right there in that camera. I said we gonna bring in a dude who idolizes you. He plays very similar to you. We want you to groom him up for 1 year, and then we'll see what happens.
You've been a great player.
Yeah.
He's been a huge disappointment, but we're going to pay him.
Yeah.
He's 30 Bowl, which I know you've had the discussion of what do you do with 30-old
30
receivers.
still good. He got 2 years left in him.
We can look at it from that perspective, which is reasonable. But if I'm Amari Cooper, I'm saying I have kicked ass for this team for 2 years.
Yeah.
I'm arguably the best wide receiver in the history of the franchise, even though I've only played here for 2 freaking years.
Back-to-back 1,000-yard
This
seasons.
guy, what the hell has he done? He hasn't done anything. He's a slappy.
And I don't even think Amari Cooper is mad at the fact that Jerry Jeudy, because he probably look at him like, that's my little brother. I'm glad he happy, but y'all can still take care of me. It's not like I'm asking for $50 million.
What you just said is really interesting. That you said he's got 2 good years left.
2.
You think he's going to sign for 1 more year?
Yeah.
No.
I mean,
what's he asking for? 3? 4?
I don't know what he asking for,
you know what I'm saying.
but
Like, you're right.
He got about 2 years. 32 is about when the drop.
Okay.
You'll see it at the end of 31, 32. It kind of goes down.
Okay, so if he's got 2 good years left and you got him under contract for 1, he ain't asking for 1 plus 1. He's asking for this 1 plus 3 or 4 more.
And
I don't blame the Browns. I don't blame the Browns in this instance. But of course you're pissed.
But you don't blame Amari for being pissed.
No,
of course not.
It's part of the business.
Yeah.
It's just you know who another person is going to be? If Nick Chubb come out there and he don't look like Nick Chubb, it's going to be 2 Cleveland Browns at the end of this season that we love dearly that will not be a part of the Cleveland Browns next year.
And
that's
we've
just
seen
what it
Tyvis and Jason to your.
All right. So he was in town for the softball game. Cooper was.
Yeah, he's
right?
here.
Yeah. So that is, I kind of thought he would be at camp. I'm a little surprised. Are you not a little bit surprised?
No. I mean, here's what we know. Based on the reporting from Brad Stainbrook, the Browns knew that Amari Cooper wasn't going to be there. The Browns and Amari Cooper's agent have had contract talks. Amari Cooper's side has let them know exactly what they want. And now it's a matter of coming to an agreement. Now, there are a long list of things I disagree with on what was talked about. One, Amari Cooper's not angry. Amari Cooper's playing his leverage because he has it. He is the best wide receiver the Browns have had since Josh Gordon. It's not even close. And he is in the last year of his contract. And he just caught 1,250 yards with 4 different quarterbacks. His best year of his career. And he had a 100-yard game with 3 different quarterbacks. And then he also had the insane game he had against the Houston Texans.
Yeah.
So that's part of it. He's got leverage. He's going to use it. He's set to earn $20 million this year, and that is fine, but he can get a little bit more. So let's start with Jerry Jeudy was brought in to replace Amari Cooper. No, he wasn't. They do completely different things. Amari Cooper is a true X, a true number 1. You can line him up basically wherever you want, although predominantly he's going to be on the outside. And he can do all the things a number 1 receiver does. Jerry Jeudy can line up on the outside, but he has predominantly functioned in the slot.
Yeah.
So, right off the bat, yeah, you're saying, oh, well, they both run routes well. Okay, cool. That doesn't necessarily that doesn't mean they have the same job. And when the Browns brought in Jerry Jeudy, at no point was the thought process, well, it's time to get rid of Amari Cooper. The Browns want to win football games. They want to be good, and they don't want to be good for 1 year or, a couple of these 1-year stints. They want to continue to be good. Now, from Amari Cooper's standpoint, the idea that he's asking for 3 or 4 more years is idiotic. His agent's not going to ask for that because he knows the Browns are just going to say no. And ultimately, Amari Cooper wants to get more money this year in addition to whatever he's asking for. So what's that most likely going to mean? This year plus 2. And that might mean you have him for 2 years and there's an out on the 3rd year. But like, that's where the rubber's probably going to meet the road. Jack Duffin's done his work in terms of projecting what those dollar figures look like. But if you're saying, well, you can't say, well, Amari Cooper's probably got 1 to 2 years left, so he's going to ask for money nobody's going to give him. Because, like, you are making the counter argument that the Browns would make. You've probably got 1 to 2 great years. And I think they're going to talk about it, but I do think Amari Cooper has a game that ages well. It has to this point.
Yeah.
He's going to celebrate his 30th birthday this coming week. But I don't worry that he's going to fall off, like, because he knows how to get open and with route running, and he's very strong. Like, he's not going to suddenly not be strong. We worry more along lines of the deep speed and some of the quickness. But until that happens, I don't worry about it. The other point is, like, and I've heard this from a lot of people because this is what always happens. You know, people are like, oh, the Browns are out of money. The Browns are just shifting the burden of where their money is going right now. And they've sort of hinted that this is what's going to happen. The Browns right now are paying 5 offensive line contracts that are not rookie deals. They are going to get out of that. DeJuan Jones is one of those guys, presumably. They just drafted Zach Zinter, who's hopefully going to be another one of those guys. We've got to see what Luke Whippler can do, but he's a guy that they would like to be able to do one of those jobs. They're probably still going to have to go get a left guard, and they're still going to have to get another tackle. But, like, as cost shifts away from a guy like Jedrick Wills or Jack Conklin another year or so, Amari Cooper can absorb that money and that cost. So you can keep these guys going. But, like, this is one of those things that's always funny to me. Like, he's not here for this one, but Operation Stockpile. And then we're like, whoa, I don't know. The Browns have too much talent. How would we solve a problem like too much talent? Well, you figure it out in terms of how you structure the payments and you make it work. Like, at no point do I think the Browns brought in Jerry Jeudy and we're like, well, I guess we're moving on with Amari Cooper. Like, they're going to have to think about that in some point, and that's going to be part of the conversation. But there's no incentive to move him. There's no incentive to try to play hardball with him. They're going to get a deal done with him. It's just a question of when that happens. Now, the fact that he's in town, there's a possibility that it could be done in the next 2 days. I don't think that will happen. I think training camp becomes the real deadline, but they're going to get this done. Now, he mentions Nick Chubb. All the more reason for Amari Cooper to say, hey, I want to make sure I get paid, because not that, you know, the position he plays is likely to run into that situation the way that Chubb's had, but you are always theoretically one hit from being done.
Away.
So get your money. Like, let's not kid ourselves. And I don't blame, Amari Cooper for that. And, like, here's the last point. Again, I don't have any reason to believe Amari Cooper is angry. I don't have any reason to believe anything other than this is just part of the process. They are quietly operating. Amari Cooper has not said anything. He has not taken all of his Brown stuff off social media. He has not gone on social media and complained. He's not complained to teammates or anything. You know, all the other stuff that you typically hear in these types of situations.
Yeah.
From other players. It's a business and it's a negotiation. And I don't think Amari Cooper, one, he's a quiet guy anyway. And two, I think he's just going to let these guys handle it and get it solved, because, you know, he could theoretically go and make a play to the fans and try to make pressure, but that doesn't really matter. That doesn't really work. They're going to hammer out a deal, figure out Amari Cooper's going to be here for probably 2 more seasons, maybe 3. I mean, if his game ages really, really well, you're not going to get rid of him. But the Browns have a lot of these guys, and, you know, you can criticize them potentially for having some of these guys who are as old as they are getting into the business of dealing in the 30s. But, like, I think, one, the contract extension will get done, and I don't necessarily rule out the possibility that there could be a scenario where Amari Cooper is traded at some point, again, more likely in 2 years. But it's not like they're necessarily married to a guy. You get caught up in the whole dead cap conversation. There are some positives to dead cap and what it can do for you. But like, this is not something I worry about in the least. We, at the OBR, we've been talking about the potential for a extension with Amari Cooper, for months. So other people are catching on to it because Amari Cooper has sort of set themselves. But like, I don't see any acrimony. It is not like what T. Higgins is dealing with in Cincinnati, where you've got fans hating the agent for doing his job and all this other crap. You have a professional organization that's handling it. Now, if we get into August and he's not there, then that's potentially a problem. But I would be very surprised if he's not there day one at the Greenbrier with everybody else ready to go. Because as much as Amari Cooper wants to get paid, obviously he wants to go out and compete. He wants to go out and win. The Browns have a good team. They have a lot of opportunities, so he's going to try to do everything he can. So, and the Browns have the same thing. I don't think they want to get into a long, drawn-out process. I don't think it's going to be one. I think they're going to get it done, move on, and at some point, we're going to see Deshaun Watson's contract restructured, a few other things to make sure the money works. But they can deal with this and be fine.
Yeah, as you already mentioned, I was going to point out, we heard rumblings about this over a month ago, maybe even earlier than that there could be this coming down the line, this Cooper extension, which makes sense. And to your point, a 3-year deal, or this year and 2 more, like including this year, to Jack Duffin's point, or the work that he did on it, would save them, would reduce a cap hit from 23 to 13.5. And a 3-year deal would look like 3 years, 67.5 in his estimation, which would really just be an addition of 2 years. And hopefully you would have that out after 25?
Potentially. I mean, and then when you get into that, when you create that space and you roll it over, it is going to cover some of the cost of what Amari Cooper's second year will look like. Like we've talked about this in terms of Jedrick Wills and some of these other things. The Browns aren't going to make I won't say won't, but like very unlikely the Browns are going to make another big splash move. They could theoretically, but more likely they're going to get this done to reduce their cap figure on him this year to be able to roll that over. They're going to restructure Deshaun Watson's contract to reduce that number and roll that over. And then that rolling over will not only, will cover some of the cost of those moves going forward and allow them to continue adding, which is ultimately what they do. But they are getting to a point, and we're going to see this, where some guys are not going to be here. Nick Chubb is obviously the one that stands out the most, but the Browns are also going to get some money back and have more room to operate next year as well. Like there's this idea that the Browns are going to be like out of money. They are not. They will be fine. But like, which is all the more reason I'm not worried about this. Like the Browns are ahead of this enough to like this. They're not shocked by this. They knew
no.
And now they can operate, get him signed, and move forward.
Square Table Degenerates in the chat says Cooper is better than Judy. He's going to want more than he got. Well, yeah, he's going to get more than he got. I mean, he's already scheduled to get more than he's getting this year at 20.
Correct.
So he would. I would think that an extension would give him a little more this year, but more importantly, guaranteed money in the mid-20s probably, I would think, next year, and at least the option for it in a third year. It was kind of what it seems like, right?
Yeah, it's a small pay bump, which, if it's $3 million, it's obviously pretty good. But like, he's not going to get like what we're seeing from some of these super, super high premium
36.
But like, he's going to get the certainty of next year. He's going to get the certainty of a certain amount of money the following year. Like so much of this is peace of mind. It's not just a pay bump, though. Look, understandably why he'd want more. It's more about securing what is likely to be the last big contract of his career. It's a big deal. And, go out with, in his case, what could be an extra, $30-40 million that he secured, as opposed to, bet on myself, $20 million. Let's say he has a great year.
Yeah.
As Jason Lloyd's, again, arguing against himself, maybe he could get a big payday, but like, it's probably going to be a 2-year deal that's like a bunch of money that he's probably already be getting from the Browns anyway. Like, he's not going to get more overall, short of the possibility of signing with Carolina because they're a dumpster fire that has to pay the incredibly painful Tepper tax. But then you're just going there and you're saying, well, I'm just going to get my paycheck and I'm not going to compete. This way, Cooper gets the best of both worlds. And like, he's got a pretty sweet setup. He's more beloved here. I mean, there's still Cowboys fans who are super bitter about the fact that he's in Cleveland and playing so well, but like, he's more beloved here than he's been on any of his previous teams right now. And there's no reason for that to stop. They've got a good thing going. Like, it's all trending in a direction where everybody's going to be pretty happy with this setup.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Not a big deal. Feel like it'll get handled, like you said, in a professional manner. This isn't, these 3 days aren't a big deal. The interesting aspect is kind of what you mentioned is like, if let's just hypothetically say for some reason his agent or he wants some exorbitant like $30 million or something like that. Not saying that that's going to happen because I think they understand his age and factor in this, right? So, but say they did, he would eventually probably play out this deal if they say that. Let's just say they couldn't come to an agreement, Pete. If they could not, he would play out this deal on his $20 million this year and become a free agent next year. Hypothetically, like you just kind of talked about it, I mean, say if he caught 1,200 yards again, what would he go out and make on the open market at 31 years old going into 2025, coming off like another 1,000-yard year?
Maybe he could get 2 years, $60 million total. I mean, it's not impossible. I still have questions because at that point he's a 31-year-old receiver. But again, it comes down to who's able to pay you that money, because you might get that money, but it might be on a team that's not good. And yeah, you get your payment, but like, is it worth it? So that's what it's not. To me, it's not all that different from Nick Chubb. I mean, I know obviously it's different from the standpoint that Nick Chubb is dealing with a serious injury, but like, to do what Amari Cooper theoretically wants to do, which is win and get paid, there are 31 other teams aren't going to offer him as much as the Browns are through that lens.
Right.
Which is the same deal with Nick Chubb, which is why Nick Chubb was always going to get done, because the Browns were the only team who was willing to pay him for past performance, and the good vibes. That's the same thing here. Like, Amari Cooper is going to get, if it's the $67 million that Jack is projected or whatever, like, that's pretty good to go out on and be on a team that can win. He can be the hero and everything else. Like, it works for him. Maybe there's a situation where he doesn't really like the Browns, but I think that is unlikely. I think the fact that the Browns have sort of empowered him quite a bit has been really good for him. Again, the production. 1,250 yards with 4 different quarterbacks is crazy. And he's the unquestioned number one, whereas like he got into a situation with Dallas where he was like the number 2, and then he was sort of a forgotten entity. And then Jerry Jones just decided, I don't like you anymore, and got rid of you. Like, again, he's playing up his leverage. He's got it, but it only goes so far.
Do you think he's concerned about Do you think he's just concerned about one more big payday, or do you think there is some consideration of, hey, I think I can play into my mid-30s. Can I come back to the table again, and when is that?
It's possible that, like, he's just that dude who's built that way. Mercedes Lewis is just signed to play his 19th season or whatever it is.
Yeah, he's 40.
I think he played with Ditka. There's always the possibility, but like from Cooper's standpoint, your goal is secure the bag, try to stay as healthy as possible, try to stay as good as possible, and then you always allow yourself the ability to potentially renegotiate. But like, I guess I don't. There's never been a sense to me that like Amari Cooper is necessarily a ruthless negotiator. I mean, he's certainly gotten paid, but like, I think I don't think there's a point where everybody's going, oh man, that's outlandish. Like, So I think he's just practical in this standpoint.
Yeah. Agreed. I tend to agree that that's the way that it'll go. Not panicked about it. I was a little surprised just because I just kind of thought, hey, he's in town. He'll probably be there. But I understand completely why he's not. I do. And it makes sense. And to your point, I don't think, this narrative that he's angry is necessarily correct. I think he's just doing what he has to do.
The notion he's pissed is based off nothing other than he's not there, so he must be pissed.
Yeah. All right, let's continue on here with this conversation.
The recent run of wide receiver contracts. And it started with Judy, and now it's ended with Justin Jefferson getting $130 million guaranteed, and the highest paid. I don't know where Amari Cooper falls in that scale, but he ain't taking a discount.
The Browns are desperately praying to God that Jerry Jeudy has a good season, because if Jerry Jeudy has a good season and Deshaun Watson looks good, that first round pick next year will be spent on a wide receiver in the first round, because
and they will move on.
They will move on from Elijah and Cooper. Yep. It is what it is.
In the end, it doesn't, like, we all understand why Amari Cooper's pissed. I'd be pissed if I were him too. But he's not holding out during the season.
No, he'll be there.
OTAs, who cares?
Exactly. That's exactly it.
Right.
And if I'm the Browns, I wouldn't fine him. Like, you can fine him.
No.
Don't fine
him. Let him keep his money. Let him keep all his money.
Send him a message that he's unhappy, which we get. I'm sure the Browns.
Is this the last year? This the last contracted year, right?
Correct. He is a unrestricted free agent after this season.
Yeah, it might be done. Unless he go out there and just have an unbelievable season. If he go out there and have an unbelievable season.
But if you're him then don't you wait to get the free agency?
Yes.
Somebody else,
yes. Because
I would maybe I'm in the minority on this, because I know the NFL is in the moment and you win for right now every year. I would rather miss on one good year of Amari than overextend on him and be saddled with 2 or 3 bad years.
The rule in the league is you trade a guy a year too early rather than a year too late.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Amari had the injury problems at the end of last season. He could, his career, he's around the age where a lot of wide receivers start to go the wrong direction. And that could happen this year. I mean, hopefully he's got at least one more good year left. We'll see.
The good thing about him is he's got a unique skill set. I mean, route running is something that you could play for a longer period of time. Fair. If it's not just natural instincts where you could jump over guys and make great catches.
Outrun them.
Right. Yeah. If you're really creating separation with routes, you could play maybe 2 extra years with that.
Sure.
And that's where he's at in his career. And he's been successful, and with the Browns, he's done great. Yeah. I need to see what it looks like this year now that all these other pieces is in there. But if Jerry Jeudy has a great year, I think it's over.
Jerry Jeudy does not have a great year.
Then they better, that I don't know what, they still going to take that first round pick and get a wide receiver.
You're going to get a highly, highly motivated Amari Cooper.
Oh, yeah. Not that he ever plays unmotivated.
And Elijah Moore.
Because they have to get paid off of this season.
Now,
like Elijah Moore has not received a big contract, so he has no choice but to go out there and play hard.
The difference is Amari Cooper's a good player and Elijah Moore's not.
Yeah, I mean, if the Browns don't pay Amari Cooper, it's not like he won't have a job next year. Somebody will pick him up easily, and he'll be playing next year for sure.
Yeah. All right, Mike.
Killing my guy Elijah. Come on. Easy.
I think he will have a good year. I don't know what that will look like statistically, but I think it'll be way more efficient. And not surprisingly, in part because Cooper and Jeudy weren't practicing, but there's endless highlights of Elijah Moore cooking people because that's just what he does. Again, the notion that you're going to sign Cooper to like a 4-year deal is insane. There's no reason for it for either side. I don't think his agent's going to be like, hey, we want a 4-year deal. The Browns will be like, okay, see you later. Like, they have to work in a spectrum that's realistic. That is not – I don't rule out the possibility that the Browns could take a first-round receiver, but that's largely going to have less to do with Amari Cooper and more to do with Cedric Tillman, David Bell, Elijah Moore, Jamari Thrash, Michael Woods. And at this point, right now, the Browns are drafting a left tackle, and I don't even know who's going to play left tackle, in this college year because everything is projecting all these guys to play guard. But like right now, the Browns have to take a left tackle. Now that could be the first or second round, and they could do something else. But like, it's going to be tough for me to see them go big at wide receiver, based on what I've seen to this point. But like, we'll see. As I said, I think you're going to have those two get signed. and then you're going to hope that at least one of the guys that they have there is going to have a good year. You still have Njoku. Like, they're in good shape. They could do a whole lot of things in the draft. Wide receiver certainly in that conversation, though.
Yeah. Speaking of tech, do they have like thoughts of Hakeem Adeniji or any of these guys like stepping into that role? Is that why the constant rotation on offensive line here? We're seeing kind of a constant churn. Are they looking for a tackle, you think?
Well, I think they just want talent. I mean, I think they want to find dudes that fit what this offensive line coach Andy Dickerson wants to do. I assume we're going to hear from him this week, but we'll see. Yeah. I don't think that's coming. And Roy Ishvan. But, like, to me, I think Zach Zinter was a big hint at the direction the offense is going to go. And they've got to find guys that fit what they want to do. And then you have, on the one hand, you have the guard situation where you're trying to find depth and guys that could potentially play for the future. Zach Zinter is certainly part of that. They've gotten Javion Cohen as an undrafted rookie. They just got Wyatt Davis, who has done nothing in the NFL. But, hey, he fits exactly what the scheme wants to do if he can stay healthy. They have signed a bunch of guys. Jermaine Ifedi, I believe, is playing guard. To your point, Adeniji is playing tackle. They've got the guy's name I can't pronounce. The one Nigerian I can't pronounce.
Roy.
It's just Roy, who's 6'8", 315, who doesn't count against the roster. They have looked at a couple guys recently, but I think in all, and they signed Brian Allen as a center. I think in all, I counted like 8 moves they've made that they've added. And they're going to keep looking partly because of the tackle situation. Until Jedrick Wills and Jack Conklin are there, they've got the ability to like quickly evaluate guys and feel like if they feel good about these guys or not. But like, that was one of the things I wanted to see from Andy Dickerson. Oh, and I forgot Lorenzo Thompson, the Rhode Island undrafted rookie as well. I want to see Anderson I want to see the offensive line coaching staff, Andy Dickerson, coach as many young guys as he can get right now, because I do want to just see him find if he likes these guys and he can find a good rotation. Like, I want him to get in there, get some work done. And if he can find guys he likes and they can build on it, great. And if not, like, the Browns are obviously going to have to do some things, but like a dream scenario, and I like Michael Dunn, but he's 30 or going to be 30 this year. If Javion Cohen is like impressive enough, as an example, and he can make the roster, like, you're in really good shape. They may try to get Michael Dunn in the practice squad, which they were successful in doing last year. If Lorenzo Thompson is really good, I don't think they're married to James Hudson at this point, based on what I've seen or we've seen over the past couple of years. And I like him, not necessarily as a talent, just as a human being. But so you've got one tackle spot you could clearly point to and go, this spot's open. But the fact that Jack Conklin is not healthy yet, the fact that Jedrick Wills is not healthy yet, the fact that DeJuan Jones is now getting up and going, which is good, you have the ability to get these guys reps. And you can evaluate, you can see where they're at. If you find guys you like, you keep them. But like, I want the Browns to keep churning and finding until they get the best 8 guys they can get. Andy Dickerson starts to get comfortable with what he's got, and then the Browns can start attacking the draft, since they didn't do it the way I would have preferred and gotten a tackle now. But this is the path they've chosen. They've got to figure it out.
Yeah. So biggest news from day one, Amari Cooper not there. We've kind of hashed it out for you. No reason to panic, certainly. And we'll keep our eyes on everything from there. Our next clip tonight here on the React, if you're watching on X, hop on over to youtube.com/Orange and Brown Report. Hit subscribe, hit like, tell a friend about the React. Tune in to the OBR streaming network every night the rest of this week as we continue our shows, and make sure you resubscribe to the new channel if you are not aware of that situation. All right, so we're going to hop over to PFT with Mike Florio and Chris Sims. talking about David Njoku's calling the Dorsey's offense juicy. So let's get into that here on the React with myself and Pete Smith. Here we go.
New offense under Ken Dorsey, who was fired by the Bills. This has been the year of the recycled offensive coordinators. Fired by the Bills during the season. The Bills turned it around without him. He crash lands in Cleveland after they fired Alex Van Pelt, who crash landed on his feet in New England. Here is question and answer posed to David Njoku about the Ken Dorsey offense in Cleveland.
In regards to Ken Dorsey, just how much have you sort of been able to dive into like the playbook and some of the stuff that he has planned for you guys as you kind of get ready?
It's juicy, dog. It's juicy. I'm not going to say anything else. So leave it at that. But I'm really excited for this.
It's juicy. Offense is juicy. And I wonder how different the offense is really going to be because Kevin Stefanski is an offensive guy.
That's right.
So it's not like you're going to turn the whole thing over to Ken Dorsey and say, hey, bring that offense here that got you fired from the Bills. It'll be some sort of a hybrid, I would assume, but whatever Ken Dorsey has added to it has gotten the attention of David Njoku.
I like it. I mean, I think you're saying the right thing. Stefanski, I think, is still the architect of what he envisions of the offense and where he wants to go and all of that, right? Stefanski is kind of rooted a little bit more in the West Coast system and all of that. Dorsey has a little bit of a history there as well, but Dorsey, the thing that I think could be good here is Dorsey can bring a few wrinkles, right? Dorsey comes from a little bit of a different coaching tree. It's not as West Coasty and all that. So within that, sometimes there's some different ideas and schemes and how they put plays together that I think could fit the Cleveland Browns or add to their arsenal, right? I mean, again, Dorsey, think about him there. He was under Mike Shula, what they were doing with Cam Newton and the Carolina Panthers. A lot of his offense can be rooted in that type of stuff as well, which can fit Deshaun Watson, and I think give a few more ideas, maybe more some aggressive passing down the field ideas that maybe the West Coast offense doesn't have. So, I do think there's going to be value and some new looks with this offense.
There's something that Dorsey brings to the table that I hadn't thought of before. When you consider Kevin Stefanski's experience, he was in Minnesota from like 2006 until the year before he became the Browns head coach.
Right.
Dorsey has experience showcasing star quarterbacks. The Browns have supposedly a star quarterback who had better play like one sooner rather than later. And like, if the goal is let's get the most out of our quarterback, like it's not system driven. This is what our guy can do. We need to have plays, circumstances, decisions, progressions, everything that lets him be a star. And maybe that's part of getting the most out of Deshaun Watson, not treating him like another piece of the offensive puzzle, but saying we need to run the offense through him. It's
right.
the Russell Wilson thing. He wanted to have the offense run through him. He didn't want to be part of a system. Maybe Stefanski has just been conditioned. And I'm spitballing here, but I hadn't really thought of this.
I'm spitballing with you.
And Dorsey's like, no, it's
right.
star.
Right. No, I think more like.
I actually think that Florio kind of nailed it there. Like, we've talked about, Dorsey's function, and certainly he's bringing something to the offense schematically, and I have no question about that. But I feel like job number one for him is just get the best out of Deshaun Watson, period.
Undoubtedly, that's his draw. I mean, you don't hire him if not for that. The fact that he has had success with Cam Newton, with Josh Allen. These guys have played better football with him, particularly in a quarterback coaching angle, and those guys have sung his praises. Like, what gets forgotten is that when Brian Daboll took the Giants job, it was Josh Allen who advocated for Dorsey to be the OC. So he has a relationship with his quarterback that's productive. He has been able to get them to play well. So that's job one. Beyond that, Kevin Stefanski wanted to bring in guys who are going to bring in new ideas. Certainly Ken Dorsey is a part of that. I look at guys like Nick Charlton, the former offensive coordinator of Connecticut. I look at Tommy Rees, the former offensive coordinator of Alabama. And yes, Dorsey has a big voice, but I think they want to hear from everybody. I think they want to hear from Deuce Staley. I think they want to hear from Andrew Dickerson. I think that is very important. And in some ways, you're sitting here and you're saying, well, Ken Dorsey got fired, so why could the Browns possibly want him? Well, if Kevin Stefanski, who has had a tremendous run of success as an offensive play caller and coordinator in general, can sort of take what Dorsey does and sort of elevate him, which simultaneously elevates the Browns, that's good. Like, that's what you want. Kevin Stefanski has made people better in his tenure here. So that's part of it. But like, there is an element, and I don't know how much this really affects Stefanski all that much, but like, he has been in sort of the Kubiak tree and the Shanahan tree for so long that like you can occasionally get into ruts, and there's an element of, I want to bring in somebody else who's going to just throw stuff at me that I haven't done and challenges my preconceived way of doing things. And based on everything we've seen and heard, that is exactly what is happening here in terms of, one of the things that keeps happening is people are insisting that Ken Dorsey is going to be the play caller and everything else because of just how much Kevin Stefanski is allowing him to coach. And maybe he will call plays. I don't know. But what is clearly happening is Kevin Stefanski is allowing Dorsey to coach a whole lot. I assume it's the same with the other guys. Yeah. Well, why is that? They've heard, the guys who have been here have heard Stefanski for 3 years. It's not that he's not going to have anything else to say or anything else to add, but he needs Dorsey to get on these guys on the same page, to have built that rapport with them, to sort of get them to trust him, to buy into what he's doing. And then when they get, behind the scenes, obviously they've put this thing together. Like, Dorsey may be out there calling or, out there sort of being the face of this, but it's obviously been a merger of ideas, which is something that Kevin Stefanski today in his press conference made a real point of saying, it's not the Kevin Stefanski offense, it's not the Ken Dorsey offense, it's the Cleveland Browns offense. Right. I think that's a huge, reason why those guys are here. Why do they take the job? It's not just to sort of coach up the pieces and let Kevin Stefanski do all the work on Sunday. Like, he wants guys who are going to help him. And as I've sort of mentioned before, I don't think we're going to know entirely. I think it's going to reveal Alex Van Pelt's influence on this offense in absentia. By the virtue of seeing how it looks different with Dorsey, we're going to see what the influence of the Alex Van Pelt, Stump Mitchells, so on and so forth were more than before, because that's all we had to go on as far as he was in a Cleveland Browns uniform. So there's a natural evolution that needs to happen. Clearly, Deshaun Watson's at the center of it in terms of maximizing it. But the thing I will continue to say is that the Browns offense needed to evolve for its own sake. The quarterback in that part is irrelevant. If it was the quarterback was playing great, I would still look at the run game and go, no, this is not it. The Browns have to get better at this. And they can continue to do things that make the offense better, make the offense easier to get, quick open plays, to those type of things, to do things that are going to create better offense. And you want to continue to challenge yourself. As I've said all along, the Browns continue to sort of show you what the expectations are, that they keep trying to get better and better and better. They're never settling. They bring in these new offensive guys. They bring in Mike Vrabel. They bring in all these things to try to give them the best thing possible. That is, to me, Kevin Stefanski talks about his servant leadership and all that. I don't think he has like a massive ego. I think he just wants to win football games. He wants to find the best way to do that. So these guys are important elements of that. So, but the other thing I'll sort of end on is I love how good the Browns players are at not answering anything, but making people absolutely fall in love with it. Nick Chubb's performance was outstanding. It was like it was scripted and taped ahead of time. He answered every question in as much energy and passion is he going to offer? And he tells you absolutely nothing, and it's great. And this is the same thing. Like, come up with whatever random descriptor you want. Oh, Ken Dorsey's offense is juicy. Perfect. It doesn't tell you anything, but he's pretty excited about it, so it probably sounds pretty good.
Yep. Yeah.
Deshaun Watson
absolutely.
is the same thing today. I love it. Everybody's absolutely saying nothing, and yet it sounds compelling.
Yeah, it's following their leader there in that the master of saying nothing. So very interesting. All right, let's continue here as they continue to talk about the role of Dorsey in this offense.
What you're saying is a little bit more of like curtailing it towards the player rather than the player curtailing to the offense and me making it work that way a little bit. We talk about that a lot. I think there could be some value in that there too. And I think with what Ken Dorsey's offense, what I would envision and what we've seen in Buffalo, right, throwing the ball down the field a little bit more, going back to the Carolina Panthers and Cam Newton, that's what they do. I don't necessarily think Deshaun Watson's at his best when he is too West Coasty, right? He didn't run a West Coast offense with Bill O'Brien and them in Houston. Right, the West Coast offense, as we know, it's a little more predicated on the short to intermediate passes, precision, very quick decision, right? When Deshaun Watson was at his best under Bill O'Brien and stuff, hey, he was protected. It was like, hey, look at DeAndre Hopkins on a 20-yard out route over here, and if he's not open, come back over here, and there's a 20-yard in-cut coming, and right now, he's a little bit more in the life of, hey, 3-step slant or a little stick route, and let me get it out there quick, real precise that way. And I don't know if that necessarily fits him to his best, available tools that he has with him.
Do you agree with that?
To the extent that you always want to get your guy doing the things he does best consistently, sure. The idea that he shouldn't throw stick routes and some of those other things. Listen, man, I turn on the Ravens game, and it was get the ball out of your hands, let David Njoku go make plays. I mean,
yeah,
I think there's a balance. I think there's always a give and take with that. But what I don't want to get into is what we've seen in 2 years with the Browns, where drop back, hold the ball too long, get drilled. Like, I want, whatever short and intermediate he's comfortable with throwing, great. But I want him to have every opportunity to get the ball out, protect himself, to keep things on schedule, to avoid some of these big risks, and mix in the aggressive stuff. Like, I want to find whatever that sweet spot is for him, but
it's a balance.
The whole thing is coming up with answers. It's coming up with answers for what teams are going to do to the Browns, what teams are going to do to Deshaun Watson, and finding out which is again what I think Mike Vrabel is there to do in some capacity, is to show, like, what would I do against this, and how would I adjust to it, and what are we going to come up with to adjust, the whole adjust to the adjustments and all that type of thing. Like, there's always a consideration, like, you're always going to get to a meeting at some point, and this may happen every couple of weeks. It may, there may be some big meeting where they ultimately come down to it and go, what do we do well? And that's going to start with, what does Deshaun Watson do well? Well, okay, we're going to emphasize this part of the playbook more and more. And then there may be some things where they want to play with it, see if they can figure it out over the course of training camp and see if it sticks. If it doesn't work, they're going to they're going to scratch it out and move on to the next one. But like, that's the thing. I don't want to be in a situation where we're like, they put themselves in a very small box and say, this is what Deshaun Watson does well, and this is the only thing he does well, because ultimately that isn't going to work either. So you've got to continue to evolve him. He's got to get better. I think he wants to. Like, I think that's important to him. I don't get the sense that he's doing those things, but like, figuring out what that looks like is going to take time. That's also why I don't think the Browns play calling situation has been made, because it's June 11th. We need to see what this looks like, getting in a rhythm in training camp. Now we've got to beat the defense. Now we've got to, what's the defense doing? Now what's your call? Those type of things. Again, I've seen any number of outlets, including Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show, run with this idea. Well, they've already made this decision. They just haven't said it yet. And it could be, but ultimately I think the Browns are going to take a lot of time to figure that out. And I still come down on the fact that it doesn't really matter that much. My big thing is just Kevin Stefanski is more valuable in terms of, one, getting the play in quickly so that Watson or whoever has time to sort of see the field and make the necessary pre-snap looks and potentially change the play. And then the notes he gives, which I think proved valuable because they won 4 games with 4 different quarterbacks. And Deshaun Watson has said flat out, this was good.
Yeah. Yeah. The kind of game management notes, like, this is what we're looking for here. This is what we're looking for there. Yeah, absolutely. All right. We'll finish up with this clip here.
One challenge for Deshaun Watson is to stay healthy. He missed most of last season with multiple injuries, ultimately fractured his right shoulder and was gone for the year. He gave the Browns a little bit of an injury scare at the David Njoku charity softball game, collided with rookie tight end Zaire Mitchell-Payton. And he's fine, but you're going to hold your breath involving anything when it comes to Deshaun Watson until we see him out there playing, we see him healthy, and we see him effective this year, because that's the key. He's got to play well, and he's got to stay healthy, and this is it, year 3 of that $46 million fully guaranteed 5-year commitment.
Yeah, that I'm sure made everybody a little scared. And rookie tight end, what are you doing? When the quarterback calls it and says, I got it, get the hell out of the way. Quarterback called it. I don't care. He's got all authority out there. You got to let him catch the ball. Get out of the way.
That was one of the things that always drove me crazy about baseball. I got to call it. You call it. And when do you call it? And do you piss the other guy off if you call it when he could have had it? You have to be assertive, and the clock is ticking because the ball's in the air. Somebody better call the damn thing or go catch it. How many times have we seen nobody calls it, and it just plops right down in the middle of the field? Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks.
All right, so in the line of, or on the topic of Deshaun Watson real quickly before we get to our final video of the night, in his presser today, Pete, I took note of, and I sent this to you, but I took note of him making the comment that he didn't feel as though he took big hits last year. I would tend to disagree and think, so the question was asked to him, is he going to change his approach to running and try to be more safe? And he kind of said, no, I'm not going to change that. I didn't really take any big hits. I think he did take some big hits, and I think he initiated some of them, to be honest. So I just wanted to kind of hear what you think about that. I felt like that was a silly answer. I think just saying, yes, I'm going to try to be more safe would have probably been more appropriate.
Well, it's possible that he means it. I'm hoping it's more of a bravado type thing, and he doesn't want to tell people openly, I'm going to change my playing style. But obviously he's got to be smarter in terms of understanding when he should be aggressive, when he should look to do that thing, and the style of hit he initiated against the Tennessee Titans as well, never. But, if it's first down, get out of bounds or slide. If it's third down or at the goal line, you got to get in. Okay, but there's got to be a smarter process in terms of risk assessment. But look, listen, the softball game, we're getting our hits out early, testing the shoulder, feels good. So good on ZMP. Test that thing out. Let's feel comfortable with it. And get those hits out early. But yeah, I mean, that one I can't speak for Deshaun Watson. I think there's probably some element of pride, I suppose, in just I'm not changing for this, that, and the other. But he also said it himself. I got to be available, and so there's certainly an understanding of what that looks like. But high ankle sprain, broken shoulder, pitching injury, this, that, and the other, from a guy who's had double knee surgery, all the things, you got to stay on the field, and that's got to at least be part. Look, I get it. The game starts going and your adrenaline starts going and you feel like you've got to compete and win. But I think he's got to really embrace the staying available for all the reasons that make sense. He did not play particularly well in several of the games he played. They were 4-1. Understanding that he doesn't need to be that guy all the time. And it's the same conversation you'd have with Josh Allen is like, you don't need to do this stuff in a random week 7 game where the Bills are already up however many points or whatever. Because ultimately, the guy who tends to hold up the Lombardi trophy at the end of the year is the guy who had the best luck with his health. Even nagging injuries tend to really, drag guys down in performances as the year goes on. So, I mean, I assume that conversations he's having with the coaching staff, conversations he's having with Quincy Avery, like has to be an understanding of, you're a big, strong dude who can create with your legs, but ultimately you've got to be smart in understanding when to not bet on yourself in terms of trying to avoid pressure that you shouldn't and just get the ball out. And 2, either get it sliding or getting a bounds in situations where it makes, where it's prudent to avoid taking that big hit, live to play the next down, live to play the next drive, live to play the next game.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we're going to finish up tonight with Dalvin Tomlinson at the podium today, or with his press availability. Not really the podium, I guess, but so here he is. After day 1 of minicamps, make sure you hit subscribe and like the OBR streaming network. And here we go.
Just talk. What did you kind of learn about playing with Jeremiah behind you last year?
Put it in one word, the guy's explosive. He's definitely a playmaker, and I felt like he started coming too last year, and I feel like he's gonna keep growing a lot more this year. And just seeing him on the field, the way he's just been taking over a little bit this year. It's just like the development over the offseason and just all the experience he got last year. He's gonna be one hell of a player.
I know you're engaged, you're doing all sorts of stuff on the line, but were there ever any moments where you saw him make a play and you're like, man, I can't believe that?
A couple times, yeah.
Trying to get off block?
It was a couple times I thought I was going to make the play, and then you just come out of nowhere and shoot through the gap. And then, like I was saying, TFLs and stuff, making y'all celebrating. But, it's a couple times it's just he just comes out of nowhere. Like, you don't even know he's over there at one point, and then he just pops up, big play mid.
It seemed like watching you last season, I know I talked to you about midway through the year, that in this defense, maybe it takes D tackles a little bit to find their groove, find their rhythm. I know Mo Hurst has talked about that too.
Mm-hmm.
How did you feel like the second half of the year went for you? Did it feel like, okay, we're clicking as a line better as the year went on then?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I felt like we started firing on all cylinders, and up front just disruptive. We were disrupting everything across the board, week in and week out. And, it definitely took a while because it was a brand new defense for me. And, with the other help with the other guys, it started to click.
With you individually, I mean, do you think you can take kind of your stats, performance, or whatever to the next level this year, now just having that knowledge of, okay, it's year 2 in this defense?
Oh, yeah, it's always a game plan, especially when you're year 2 in the defense, and you don't want to improve on what you did the year before. And, just already knowing the whole defense and how Coach Schwartz thinks and everything, and what we all expect up front. It's, we see the sky's the limit, and we just have to improve on what we started.
What's it been like getting to work out here with Michael Hall today and kind of get to see him? I don't know how much you were around before this at the practices we've been at, but getting to see him and what he brings to the table.
Oh, yeah, he's a super athletic guy, super explosive, super quick, and he's going to bring a whole different dynamic to up front for us. And, I want Mike to go out there and ball out week 1.
What about Jock working with him, and what kind of energy does he bring as a
Oh, man, the energy it's unmatched. Like Coach Schwartz says today, he starts on 11 and goes to a 13. And, it's beneficial for all of us because the techniques he's coaching us up front in the pass rush, in the run game, it's a small detail things we take time to work on is going to help us take it to the next level up front.
You played with Jordan in Minnesota, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess bringing him in here sort of to fill, I guess, that role that Anthony left.
Mm-hmm.
What does he bring?
Oh, man, that's my guy. When we signed him, I was super happy. But, he's a great leader. He plays his role to an amazing, extraordinary standard. And he's going to hold everybody else to that standard as well. And, he comes in, he's gonna make some plays. And also he's going to help everybody else make plays and help put everybody in the right position.
Thinking about that Houston game, Dalvin, I mean, the defense really struggled getting to the quarterback. You guys didn't get a sack. Like, how much does that leave a bad taste in your guys' mouths? Is it hungrier as a group? Just kind of talk about that a little bit.
It always makes you hungry. You didn't finish the year like you wanted to. And, it makes us way more hungry because I feel like everybody's been focusing, just making sure, like, we can elevate every phase of our game up front, especially pass rushes as well.
All right. So we talked about Jacques Césaire, right? Who is electric. His press conference was tremendous the other day. He is full of energy, and he talked a lot about Mike Hall playing week 1. Thought that was kind of interesting. It feels like they think he's very much ready to be a part of this rotation. It also, I was going to mention, we heard a couple places that they want to deploy less 2-3 techs and more 3 tech and nose tackle, which would be a lot on Dalvin, unless somebody else that can do that makes the roster. You can start anywhere you want. I know I threw like 3 questions at you, but
so I'll start with the fact that Jacques Césaire is very detail oriented. Like the OTAs and stuff was slow because they are really specific of where the feet are going, how the hands are taking on blocks, like the angles, all that stuff. Very detail oriented. He's a former undrafted free agent who had to earn his way in the league, so he knows what it's sort of like to sort of have to make it be a self-made man in some ways, and I think that carries over into how he coaches, which I think is going to be useful. He's got credibility with players, and then just he's coached with Jim Schwartz before, so I think that part helps. As far as what Dalvin's talking about in general, I think I've said this before, but I think the defense is going to be better this year, even if the stats don't necessarily reflect it. I think it's going to be really difficult for them, obviously, to be the number 1 defense for 2 years in a row, but also because of the schedule and the quarterbacks they're playing, these other things. But you are listening to him tell you that as good as the Browns were on defense this past year, he wasn't really comfortable with it until week 10. And, he was really good as a pass rusher this year in terms of pressures, and he had 3 sacks. His career high is 3.5. He had 12 quarterback hits. But he wasn't an impact run defender the way he has been in years past. He did a good job protecting linebackers, and, it's not lost on me that he called JOK a thief. But he allowed, guys like that enable JOK to be a star. You have to have these type of guys to be able to make those things happen. But I think Dalvin Tomlinson is going to have hopefully a better year. That's certainly what he's hoping for, based on the fact that now he's more comfortable in the scheme. Now, to the question of 3s and 1s, it's really just a question of how the Browns sort of want to leverage where they're 2-gapping and the different ways they want to cause problems and stunting and all these other things. He could line up at a 3 and theoretically slant inside to try to cause problems that way, slant outside, whatever. It certainly sounds like the Browns just want to line him up all over the place. I think he said as much in this presser. But they do have a couple guys that they've got to sort of figure out. Siaki Ika is obviously a guy who could 2-gap. And then Juwan Briggs is not a guy who can 2-gap, or at least doesn't appear to be, based on what I've watched with him. But I do think he could be a 1-gap nose, which in some ways is sort of more true to what Jim Schwartz really wants to do, where he is trying to fire off the ball and get into one blocker so fast that the guy who would be doubling him can't get there and is out of position and now has to do those things. What you worry about is if you go double 3s, you are now in a situation where you potentially leave the center uncovered. And, you can do that and have success with it, but it tends to ask your Mike backer to be sort of a bigger dude, particularly if you're going to against a team like the Ravens, who have a very talented young center who's already sort of established himself as being a very athletic impact type player, Tyler Linderbaum. So you sort of want to have something that can mask or take him on so those linebackers can flow and do the things that they want to do. But so much of him being in the 3, to me, has to do with the fact that the Browns just want to sub-package everything. I mean, they want to shut down the run early and then just do what they do when it's second and long, third and long, and be able to terrorize the quarterback. So, like, you know, when you ask this type of question, he's not going to say, well, I'm in the 3 in obvious passing situations. I'm in the 1 and in rundowns, because I assume it's going to be a mix of both, but also, like, they don't want to, like, he's not going to give away anything more than he has to, even though teams can look at the tape from previous. But, like, that is part of it, is because he is an effective pass rusher, even though he's a guy who's so big. He is a guy who can take a guard and drive them into the backfield and collapse pocket, which is something the Browns want to do anyway, because they don't want to create the running lane for the quarterback to step up in the pocket, either to throw or to potentially scramble. If he and Zadarius Smith or Maurice Hurst or these other guys can cause that interior pressure, and now the quarterback is either stuck or moving backwards. If he moves backwards, he's dead, because Myles Garrett is just going to run around the arc and have nothing to contest him. If you can't sit in the pocket and now you're giving Myles the ability to go up the field, forget it. And hopefully, you know, Okoronkwo and stuff are going to add to that. So those parts of this thing are interesting. And then the other thing that they've added with this is they've added more quickness inside. Mike Hall, obviously, that is what he is. If he can get going, I'm always going to be wait and see, because I'm super biased on this one. But obviously, I'm happy when Dalvin Tomlinson is talking about what he sees in him. And part of the reason I think Mike is a great fit for the Browns is because they have these guys who, one, are going to push him, hold him accountable, and they want him to be good. Like, they want him to be successful. Like, they are invested in him being a big player. Like, Dalvin Tomlinson was signed in part because he's a big benefit to the locker room when they had to change over from 2022, which was full of children. And Anthony Walker was essentially playing dad to 30 guys on that side of the ball, because they had leaders like Denzel Ward, Myles Garrett, but, like, they had the one dude who was really like the sheriff type, trying to control all these people. So they've ushered out some of the guys who weren't here for the right reasons or couldn't do it. And they've added guys like Tomlinson, like Maurice Hurst, like Juan Thornhill, like Okoronkwo, that add professionalism, and then a willingness to be a leader is super valuable for the guys like Mike. Like, I've talked about this before, but I don't think if the Browns had if the Browns were 2022 or 2021, I think Mike Hall would have been a disaster here. Not having Jim Schwartz, not having the veterans that they have, I think the infrastructure the Browns have, both coaching, players, and then just what they have in the building from an operational standpoint, and the way they sort of look after their players and try to support them as much as possible. I think that's going to dramatically increase the chances that Mike is going to be able to have a big time career. Like, that's why you want to be able to do these things. It allows you to now take some of these. And I don't think Mike's a risk in terms of, and I think the risk is that he's 20. Like, you jump to the NFL at 20, you just don't know. And we saw, like, David Njoku sort of have to figure this out and grow up, which wasn't always pretty, but the talent was always evident. I think, you know, hopefully by what they're doing, that they're going to avoid some of these things with Mike, because they have these guys who are going to sort of, you know, they need him to be good. I should say the Browns can function without him and be fine, but, like, they are very interested in him being good because it's going to help them and all these other things. So there's a lot of things that I think are going in the right direction. And, you know, Quentin Jefferson being added, another potential upgrade to that defensive line who can play up and down the line, sort of the Eric Armstead, the wildly incomplete Eric Armstead, where his pass rush, like, win rate is basically equal, but offers nothing against the run at all.
Yeah.
Which is why you get him at $4 million and not $17 million or 21, whatever you got. But, like, I feel good about where they're going and continuing to build on that. And I think, like, I'm sure Ben Bloom is a nice guy. I did not think he was ready for that job. I think Jacques Sayers has a ton to prove, because to me, other than Ken Dorsey being the quote unquote quarterback's coach, not even the coordinator label, but just the quarterback's coach followed by D-line are the two assistant coaches with the most pressure to deliver, because they have the most given to them. You know, Deshaun Watson, all the money and everything else. But the defensive line, Myles Garrett, Zadarius Smith, Dalvin Tomlinson, Maurice Hurst, Mike Hall, all these guys, Shelby Harris. You've got an endless amount of guys. Like, they need them to produce at a higher level than they got last year, because for the first part of the season, Myles Garrett had all the production, and then he gets hurt, and some guys are catching up, and then we get to the playoff game, and nobody gets anything. Like, so Zaire has a lot to sort of live up to. I think he is handling it well in terms of being very dedicated to his process. I hope that it can be successful, but like, there's no getting around the fact that they, like, if the Browns come out and are not good, like Jacques Zaire, I should say, if the defensive line is not good, Jacques Zaire is immediately going to start taking heat.
They're loaded. Yeah.
There's no getting around it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm trying to think. Z coming back.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Obviously have that relationship. How important is that?
This poor guy, he's got
super important, especially
right now.
That's what it's the same thing I was thinking. Or they're just taking their turns. Ashley and Dan Lobby just taking turns asking him questions. Mostly just Ashley.
Because other people are going to catch up, because they did this simultaneously, where I think Stefanski was talking and potentially Watson was talking. And so you have people catch up and then ask questions because they weren't there. So poor Dalvin with two people trying to ask questions, trying to come up with everything.
We started last year up front, Z, Obo, Miles, me, Mo, and all of us returning and stuff. It's gonna it's just like we picked up where we left off, and all of us, we know how each other rush now, and you can just build off of each other and build that chemistry that much more.
And last one, I think, for me, but do you think, is there any danger to complacency? I mean, you guys are all pretty much the same group coming back, and you had a good year. Is there kind of a need to fight against complacency? Do you think it kind of comes naturally since you guys are so veteran at this point?
Yeah, not at all, because last year doesn't count. It doesn't matter the stats we made last year, the record we had. We were 0-0. We have to start over, and everybody's starting at the same level playing field. So last year, complacency is just like it didn't happen when we step on this field this year.
They didn't win anything. That team was so fun. They didn't win. They didn't win a playoff game. They, obviously, all these guys want to win the Super Bowl, but they didn't win a playoff game. And I'm not holding it against them, but not only did they not win, they got run out of the building. If they don't have the motivation coming into this year, I don't know what to tell you. We got the wrong dudes.
It should not be. I mean, it should be the opposite of complacency. You know what I mean? So
if they're as good as they can be, and this is the dream scenario, especially those defensive linemen, you have to compete to do anything.
Yes.
If you're going to get stats, you got to. I mean, the worst situation in the world is you can beat the crap out of the guy across from you, do everything perfectly, get right in the backfield, and Myles Garrett's standing over the quarterback smiling. It's so difficult. This is and this is the thing. It really is difficult. We talked about Okoronkwo wants to get 10 sacks season. He could be great. He could do everything right. And Myles Garrett could have 20 sacks because he's just that special. You have to compete for everything. You have to compete for reps, and this is what you want. You have to compete for reps. You have to compete for getting the production. You have to do everything just to find a way to make the plays to get where you want to be. This is Andrew Berry's thing. Get the best 90 you can because you want to get the best 53 you can, and the Browns are doing that, and they. We're talking about this, and you can make a case for 12 defensive linemen to make this team.
Yeah,
it might be 10. Maybe they find another way to keep an 11th, or it would. Let's put it this way: it wouldn't stun me if the Browns, in the whole, we get in that whole roster break cut down before the roster cut down, where you get to 53 and then you get the weird numbers. It wouldn't surprise me if the Browns come out with 12 defensive linemen, and then make the next corresponding moves or whatever, but it's you have to be motivated because there's a very real scenario where Maurice Hurst does not make this team.
Yep.
That's crazy, but that may be reality.
Yeah, the competition is crazy all the way through to. I mean, to your point, you mentioned Okoronkwo talking about wanting to get 10 sacks. Well, Cesar was just talking about how he thought Alex Wright could have 10 sacks the other day.
So,
I mean,
that stuff is like, I am thrilled that Cesar is like immediately thinking of Isaiah McGuire and Alex Wright as guys who are like doing things that are making him feel good about them.
Yeah,
there's no shot that either of those guys get 10 sacks this season. If they ever do it, the Browns are in phenomenal shape because Alex Wright's entering year 3, Isaiah McGuire's entering year 2. Like, you are thrilled, but like, I think he just used that as a way to sort of talk those guys up, which is great. Like, Isaiah McGuire is going to potentially be like toiling in obscurity most of this training camp because like his best case scenario is the 5th guy. Most likely on the edge, like, and he could do everything right. He could be great for where they want him to be and still be the 5th guy. Like, that's a really, really good situation. But like, don't get me wrong. If Isaiah McGuire and Alex Wright have 10 sacks this season, hopefully that means the Browns had about 90 of them. But I don't think it's necessarily realistic to this point.
Yeah, agreed. There's just too much talent up and down the line of scrimmage, right? I mean, it's basic, it's hard. It's going to be very difficult to find the field for a guy like McGuire.
Yeah, like
for minicamp, just sort of hit the ground running with everybody.
Oh yeah, for sure. Everybody's just in here laughing and everything, picking up plays quick, just like for the guys who weren't here. I just pretty much remembered everything for the most part. And we just came out here and just actually got some good work in today and looking forward to tomorrow too.
I apologize if they've already asked you this about, but Jim was talking about how much more you can, like last year, it was like he compared it to a pitcher, throwing last year, just working on the fastball, but like this year, you start dropping into the changeup. And how much more, because of the that continuity you have, you feel like this defense is capable of doing schematically on the field because of that, that carryover from one year to the
I would say a lot more, simply because last year was a new defense for a lot of us. Like me, I never played in a defense like this until last year. So a lot of us took 8 to 10 weeks to actually get accustomed to the defense. And now, since we're already accustomed to it, most of us returned. It's just like we're picking up and running, and we just adding more stuff to it.
Does it make the meetings easier, the meetings easier as well, because you have a year in the defense as you're like talking about just different elements that you guys are working on, and you have, I guess, that base knowledge?
Oh yeah, for sure. Especially like when you when we see ourselves on the film now, like from the stuff we did last year, that's the expectation. Like, it can't be below that standard, so we can start there and build on that. It just makes it, like you said, since most of us are returning, make it way more easy.
I apologize too if you were asked this, but red zone defense. Jim was talking about how it's kind of one of the areas of focus, just like you guys led the league in so many areas, but that was kind of a deficit for you guys. What have you seen as you guys have looked at film or just kind of talked about red zone defense that's like specifically a focus?
I know for up front is we want to be a little bit more disruptive up front in the backfield, in the red zone, because when we make those big plays in the backfield in the red zone, it may keep 3 points or 6 points off the board. So that's the biggest emphasis up front, is just we got to be more disruptive on their side of the ball in the red zone.
Are you playing more of a nose tackle this year?
I've been playing everything so far.
Schwartz, somebody has mentioned that we're going to use more nose. How does that, is it perceptible to the average person in change in the tackle positions?
I just feel like whatever Schwartz wants us to, we're going to go out there and go with it. Just go ball out with it.
So the nose would line right over center?
Depends on the defense. It may be over the center, over the guard, or you just might be, a little bit everywhere. So
is it not a big deal?
Not necessarily. Not in our defense. It isn't.
Jim said last week that instead of a bunch of fastballs, there would be change-ups. He used a baseball analogy. So what exactly does that mean?
Just like I said before, it's just a lot of us are returning, and it took a lot of people a while to pick up the defense last year because it was his first time learning the defense. Since most of the people knows the defense now, we could just add a lot of more different things he probably withheld last year for us.
But the line is pretty much intact from last year. how much would that be a benefit?
That'd be a huge benefit because a lot of us up front didn't even play this defense before in our whole career. So.
We've reached repeat question zone, right here, as the others arrived.
So just for us to return, and we know the expectation we have to set, we could just add that much more to the playbook.
What about Quentin Jefferson, a guy that maybe has gone under the radar from a free agent signing, signed late in the process? What's he been like in the room so far?
Been amazing. He was out there doing some good work today, some good techniques, and yeah, we all learn from each other. So the small things makes the biggest difference for us up front. And Quentin, he brings a lot to the room just from his experience.
Have you gotten to look at Mike Hall yet? How does he look so far?
Oh yeah, he's looking pretty good, and he's ready. And as a young guy picking up the playbook quick and everything, that makes a huge difference. And yeah, he comes to work every single day, and I appreciate it.
Double questions there down the stretch for old Dalvin. Handled him nicely, though. I did Gibbs with a good question about Jefferson, right? So interesting.
Yeah, because I don't think Quentin Jefferson was at OTAs. I could be mistaken, but
I don't think he was either. No.
But yeah, to me, Jordan Hicks is the most underrated signing they've made. Because, just looking around, people have been like, this guy's, doesn't really add much. It's like he has been an excellent linebacker everywhere he's been across multiple schemes. And for now, it would be his fourth team. He has. I mean, they've collected. They're just at this point. They're just collecting Dalvin's teammates from the Vikings.
Yeah.
Darius Smith, Jordan Hicks, but he is quicker than what they've had previously. And obviously he is extremely well-versed in what Schwartz wants to do, having won a Super Bowl with him when they were with the Eagles. I think that's a huge deal. But yeah, I do think that Quentin Jefferson is an upgrade from what they had last year, just continuing to add more interior pressure. And Maurice Hurst was great. Beyond anything I would have envisioned, because my expectation would he would play no games, and he played 13 and was outstanding. But Z is good in there, but once Hurst went down, then you sort of ran out of guys to really throw in there. They could really third and long dudes on the field who are going to be athletic and cause a problem. Quentin Jefferson can do that. Quentin Jefferson can do that from all up and down the line. That's another that with Z, with Alex Wright potentially. Those are guys that can play anywhere on the front and rush the passer, which is super valuable. So that's why I sort of look at this. And Dalvin talked about it quite a bit in terms of why he thinks year two will be good for those guys. It's very easy to get lost in the fact that they were that good the first year in the system, and part of the reason they were so good is because, to borrow the baseball analogy, they threw nothing but fastballs. But the fact is, they could throw 98 consistently, and that will get the job done for the most part. Now, eventually, they ran into some teams they could either hit that speed, or the Browns weren't locating their pitches, as I think was a combination of factors with the Houston Texans. And now that they've established the fastball, they can go back, obviously work to maintain it, but now add in the changeup or whatever else we want to call it, screwball, whatever, that is going to now allow the Browns to create those create answers to problems they faced last year and answers to problems they have not yet faced. And even Tomlinson sneaks some stuff in there that you don't, that you have to pay attention to, because he sort of just sneaks it in there. But talking about adding to what they were doing, which stands to reason anyway. But that is part of it. They are now more comfortable. The fact that what he's talking about reinforces the reason why they wanted to not try to change up stuff too much, because you don't want to introduce so much stuff that he wanted to make sure they were really good at a few things. And if you introduce too much stuff too fast, then you end up being crappy at a lot of things,
At
or
all of
mediocre
them.
or whatever. And that's usually what happens in the NFL. Like a lot of guys will try to introduce a whole lot of crap, and then they are sort of middling, mediocre, or below average. And then there's the expectation in year 2. Well, now the system's in place. Let's really get going. Like the better coaches, for the most part, have picked on a few things they've gotten really good at. Kevin Stefanski, I think, to his credit, was able to do that when he first came in as an offensive coach with the Browns. And then you can start to add in year 2 and so forth and so forth. So I think that's going to be big for them. But like Dalvin Tomlinson, to me, I don't want to say he was like bad, because he wasn't, but I do think he can play. I think he's suggesting himself there's more room for him to get better, and he's had better seasons overall.
Yeah.
And I think if he's really more like, if he can really lock down with those other guys, lock down the run game, that's going to be big. Like they don't have some of the lapses they've had in some of the games, like with misdirection or some of the other elements, or he's just able to make more plays because he can anticipate more. Like that, hopefully the Browns get better. The red zone is obviously a big factor. Jim Schwartz has clearly been hammering this endlessly with these guys because, one, you can't beat. I don't know how often you want to go to the well of, well, this is what you looked like against the Houston Texans or in the playoffs or the Ravens in the first time or whatever. But the red zone, like you can look at all these numbers and go, hey, they were really good. But you can legitimately go to the red zone and they were like 26th in efficiency or something like that.
Yeah.
Like they legitimately can point to that and go, they can get a lot better. And it's easy to sort of, remember to yourself that either the Browns forced punts early, or when teams got down there, it was sort of like, oh, they are going to give up to 7. They aren't going to hold them out. Now they had a few goal line stands and some things where they've made plays, but like for the most part, they were not very good at that. And like with all the stuff we're sort of trying to see improve, or to the opposite, avoid regression, that is a part where if the red zone defense just sort of regresses to the mean, the Browns are going to be better. So there's a lot going on there that I think the Browns can get better at. They should still have at least top 10 defense. Yes, it would be great if they're number 1 again, but if you get top 3, you're doing really, really well. But if you're just top 10 and the Browns can get a top 10 offense, they're cooking.
Yep. It was interesting when Schwartz was talking about that. He mentioned the red zone last week, I think, when he spoke, and he was like, no, he's like the red zone win-loss percentage or whatever is skewed a little bit. I don't know, you probably heard this too, but he was talking about, end of quarter scenarios where a team kicks a field goal as time expires, or end of games, even kicking a field goal to win a game is a win for that defense, technically, in the red zone, statistics. But then he went back and said, despite it being a flawed statistic, we need to be much better in the red zone, which they did. But I thought it was interesting that he kind of pointed out a couple different ways that it can be flawed and how those are graded.
Yeah, he softened that to the media. I doubt he did that to the players.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, so that's it for the React here on Tuesday night. It is day 1 of mandatory mini camps is in the book. There was plenty to discuss. Keep it locked at the OBR for wall-to-wall coverage. We'll have it everything covered for you. Make sure you go subscribe there. Subscribe here at the YouTube channel or on Twitch. We appreciate you all for being participating in the show and your participation. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe on your way out. Any parting thoughts tonight, Pete?
No, just stay tuned to the OBR. We'll keep it rolling for the next couple days of minicamp and then into the break.
Sounds good. Appreciate you all. Have a fantastic evening. Keep it locked for everybody at the OBR. For Pete Smith, my name is Brad Ward. This is a brand new edition of The React. We are out.